Hey, everybody, and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage and family and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethany.
We are the Youngs. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
We're glad to have you. We've been doing a series for a long time now.
Yes.
And I was teasing my wife just a moment ago because on our walk the other morning, she said she was tired of this series.
I did not say that. I said, maybe we should bring it to an end. We're starting to reiterate. Back me up, people. Reiteration is not being tired of something. Oh, my
is right.
We need to move on.
But this will be our last session in the Family Success Series that we've been doing. Mm-hmm. And we're really excited to tell you about the coming month because we are in February.
Yay!
And we have we're going to give the next 4 weeks to talking about celebrating love.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a special Valentine's Day. It won't be on Valentine's Day, but it'll be the day after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Is how this is falling in place.
Valentine's Day podcast. All right.
We're going to do a Valentine's Day podcast, and we're going to try something we've not done, and I hope that many of you will join us. We're going to do a giveaway and a little competition to prepare for the giveaway.
Yes.
And what we want to do is we want to celebrate love. So what we're wanting to encourage our listeners to do, any of you, there's several things. We want you to like and share the podcast.
Yes.
And you can comment if you want, all that good stuff. But like it, share it, tell others about it.
Recommend it.
You've been doing that. We're very thankful for that.
Thank you for doing that.
But one of the things we thought we would do is we would encourage each of you to write a love poem to your spouse and submit it. And do two things: write a poem and submit it, and then send us a note with it telling us why you think we should choose you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to choose one of the poems, one of the submissions, and we're going to send you a $50 date night gift card. Mm-hmm. And we'll do, Texas Longhorn or Olive Garden or something else if that's what you want.
Steakhouse?
Was that what I said? Because it was Texas Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse.
There is
Longhorn. A Longhorn.
There are Longhorns in Texas.
Wow.
I have no idea what I'm saying here, but I think you have the idea. And
a mainstream chain restaurant that we would be able to get the gift card to and be able to get it to you.
We're trying to say here.
Yes.
And she said it so beautifully.
It's okay.
And so would you do that? Would you, here's what you can do. Write your poem. You can be short, long. I mean, if it's hours long, I guess.
Yeah, we might not read it.
We probably won't read that on the air. But you can write a short poem. You can be serious. You can be sincere. You can be humorous. We can even dedicate it to the person you wrote it to.
We could. Yes,
and
we could.
We'll choose, as many as we can in the 25 minutes of our podcast.
Maybe read a few.
Our special Valentine's event. And
please keep them G.
Oh, yes, that's a good point. Rated
G. It's a family program.
It's a marriage program, but it is kind of family.
Right. We don't want to have to tell you to put your earbuds in just to read your poems. And we don't want to read them.
That's true. We don't want to hear about that. However, I hope you'll do it. I hope you'll send us some poetry. And here's how you can do it. Write your poem and write a brief note on the same page about, why we should choose you. Mm-mm. And why your spouse deserves to go on a date with you. Maybe the way to say that.
There we go.
And then go to our website, keepingityoungpodcast.com.
Yes.
And you have to go to the very bottom and double click on the contact and send us that email. Mm-hmm. And we would just absolutely love to hear from you, and can't wait to read your poetry. And we really kind of have to have them in probably
in the next 2 weeks.
Easily by the next 2 weeks. And Valentine's Day is coming pretty fast here.
Yes.
But the sooner you can get them to us, the greater your chances of getting it read. And we will have a winner chosen on the day we do the podcast. So they all have to come in early enough for us to read them, examine them. And we look forward to that. So I hope you'll join us.
We can't announce the winner, I don't think, on the Valentine's Day podcast.
Oh, yes, we can.
Can we? If we get them
because it'll be the day after. We're doing the podcast the day after Valentine's Day.
Oh, okay.
So get it to us by maybe the 10th or the 11th at the latest. And so we look forward to that.
Our producer is now going, this is cutting it close,
yes,
Dave
it is
Young.
cutting it close, but he's the man, so we're in good shape there. Well, let's jump into our subject for the day. We're talking about, we've talked about training our children And we talked about all kinds of important matters, training obedience.
Right.
We parked on that for quite some time. Training our children, teaching our children the gospel.
Right.
Training them, how to know Christ and how to be
Serve
born
the
again.
Lord.
We talked for several weeks about training our children to serve the Lord.
Yes.
And just a couple of weeks here, we wanted to devote to training our children to succeed in life. One of the reasons this one is so important is because it does seem like we're living in a culture, in a generation where our children perhaps have higher IQs than any other generation, at least based on the information they have available.
Right.
We're bombarded with books, with the internet. We are the information age.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, knowing is not the same as knowing how to make a successful life.
True.
And so we wanted to just talk about that. And if you joined us last week, we covered the first two areas, and we're just highlighting. We're not really going into great depth here, but we're challenging you to think about what could you do to train your children to succeed in life.
Right.
So we mentioned respect,
Yes.
and we talked about that one because the rest of our lives, one of the things that will make or break us is learning how to work with others, to have a right spirit towards others,
Right.
to show respect to authority. We're commanded to do that as believers.
All right.
And to pray for our leaders, our government, those are in authority. And we're to pray for them and respect them. And we're to seek God and ask God to help them to make decisions so that we can lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty.
Right.
That's what Paul told Timothy. So we talked about respect. Did anything else float through your mind there before we leave that one?
I don't think so. I think we covered that one well.
And then purity. We talked about purity because we are living in a sexually addictive society. We are bombarded with adultery. We are bombarded with pornography. There's just so much.
Right.
And so many opportunities for our children. I know our neighborhood children as young as 7 will be carrying a smartphone with access to the internet.
Yes.
And it's very aware. Those who study these things will tell us that a child 5 or 6 or 7 or even sometimes 8, 9, or 10 who stumbles accidentally and the porn industry spends thousands and thousands and even millions of dollars setting up algorithms and all of that so that our children will accidentally stumble on it. It will find them.
Yes.
And you may be thinking as a parent, my kid would never go look that up. And you may be right.
Right.
But if your child is on the internet, there is a massive high percentage chance that your child's just going to accidentally see something.
Right.
And our kids don't have the vocabulary. They don't even know how to come tell us. They don't know what they saw. They don't know how to say what they saw.
Right.
And just because of our sin nature and because of the fact that the way we are made, your child will know something's awkward there, something's odd there. And they may feel uneasy about telling you. They may be afraid, maybe I did something wrong. And so it's a very tricky thing. So we have to train our children to seek purity. We have to help them when they're younger.
Right.
But we've got to do a good job of training our children in matters of purity so that they buy into our desire for purity. They buy into our plan.
Right.
It
becomes their plan.
It becomes their plan, and they're very willing to take a stand for, no, I'm not looking at that, or no, I can't watch that, or no, I can't go there.
Right.
And so you've got to train your children. They will not do it by accident. And moms and dads, I got to tell you, if you do not train your children to pursue purity on their own, I just say this gently, but you should expect them to fail. Our culture is after your children's purity.
Yes.
And they're really good at it. They are very good. They are experts at it. And so respect was our first one. You got to train your children to have respect.
Yes.
You may not be a yes sir, yes ma'am family, but make sure you're training your children to look at people, to speak to people. I even said to our children a moment ago, I said, hey, you guys have kind of been a little at each other today in your words. And I changed that. I want you to be sweet. We show respect even to our siblings.
Yes.
And if you have an older son and he has a little sister, then he's got to learn to protect his sister. That's respect.
Right.
And she's got to learn to build her brother up, and that's respect. So then there's purity.
Right.
And then today we're going to talk about one more, and we have just a few moments here together. But let's talk today about the very important subject of
work. Yes, teach them to work.
If our kids are going to succeed in life, they've got to learn to work.
Yes.
And that's a hard one. Have you ever heard somebody say this? Bethany and I hear this, people will say, we want our kids to get a really good education so they don't have to work as hard as we did. and I guess I guess I understand what a person is meaning there. But I'm of the belief, and I think the Bible backs this up, that should not be our goal.
No, and I think that's erroneous thinking, because I know some brilliant people who have been educated far beyond what I've ever been educated. They have doctorates and maybe in scientific research or in medicine, and they work very hard and very long hours. So that's erroneous thinking to think you can educate your child beyond work.
And our culture is starting to see too, one of the things that we emphasize for so long in our country is getting a college degree, and we've gotten a whole bunch of young people that have college degrees and things that don't allow them to get a job.
Do with it.
And like my brother never went to college, but my brother makes a very good living working hard. He did get some practical training in things like welding and machining and those sorts of things, and makes a very good living and a happy life.
Right.
But we have to train our children to work. Learning to work is vital for success in life.
Yes.
And I think most of you would agree with that. Let's start by reminding our audience that it was part of God's perfect creation.
Right.
When God made Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 2:14. Read that for us, sweetheart.
And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it.
To dress it and to keep it. So when God made Adam in a perfect world that was without sin, he gave him work to do.
Yes.
And maybe the reason being is because of the glimpse we see in Proverbs 13:19, where Solomon says, the desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. If you teach your children to enjoy a job well done, look what I did, look what I made, look what I accomplished, look how neat my room is, look how the house is looking, look at the yard that I just mowed, look how nice the car looks that I just vacuumed and cleaned. The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be that kind of work. Even a daughter who says, look at the cookies I just made.
Right.
Or smell that bread that I'm baking in the oven. The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. So work, moms and dads, think clearly about this. Work is not a bad thing.
Right.
And work is very much part of God's plan for our lives. Here's a few more verses just to get us thinking about where work shows up in the Bible. How about Proverbs 13:11?
He that gathereth by labor shall increase.
In other words, if we work, it brings increase to our life.
Right.
It's God's plan. And then Proverbs 14:23, I like this one.
In all labor, there is profit.
All labor.
Quote that a lot during homeschool. Will I ever use this diagramming again? Well, I don't know, but in all labor, there is profit.
A few moments ago, a trash truck came down our road and turned around in our driveway. We live on a dead-end street, and they often back down the road, but I guess they have a new driver, and he was struggling to turn around or whatever. And I remember a long time ago when we get this idea sometimes like, oh my goodness, I would never want to drive a trash truck for a living. But if we took all the trash truck drivers out of the world, we'd be one messed up world.
That would be a problem.
Is there profit in that labor? Absolutely. Our culture's cleaner, our streets are cleaner, our yards are cleaner.
Yes.
It's an amazing thing. In all labor, there's profit. And sometimes you get this idea that, well, he doesn't get paid very much, but a man who's working to take care of his family. My dad was always a stickler about that. I remember when he told me years ago, he said something about, hey, look, you may get laid off from your job, but don't lay around. You get laid off, he said, there's work to be done. And I remember he told me, and it kind of caught me off guard. He said, if I had to work at McDonald's to pay the bills for our family, I'd do it. And I remember that stuck in my mind because what my dad was trying to teach me was that in labor, there's profit.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with work.
Right.
And I know that a lot of studies have been done recently that even teaches that sometimes our retirement mindseted culture, I want to retire as early as possible, has been detrimental to mental health.
Yes.
We have no desires to accomplish.
Right.
And our culture now is so negative. If you retire and sit in your house and watch the news 24/7, you are going to have some mental health issues. And so in all labor, there is profit. And so let's talk about a couple of things here. Work teaches discipline. Our children have to learn to earn. If they're going to earn, it's something they have to learn to do. And I don't know where I heard it, but I was taught somewhere along the way that the two reasons we work is so that we can live and we have money to give. So to live and to give. And it doesn't matter the work. A man, we mentioned the trash truck driver, that's not a glamorous job, but a man who's working that way is learning. He's earning, he can live.
Yes. And
he also can budget and be a giver.
Yes. And
that's God's plan. And so let's talk about some areas where we should teach our children, or some practical things about why work is so important. I wrote down that it teaches our children to think.
Right.
And you want to expound on that a little bit, think that through?
They have to, it teaches them, first of all, to think rightly about work.
Yes.
Teaching them to work teaches them to have a good attitude. If we see our children having a bad attitude about work, say that we have a big let's clean up the yard day or let's clean the house day, yes, they will exhibit a little bit of maybe huffiness or poutiness about having to do it. And we have gotten to the place where we'll just say, look, you can be miserable all day, or we can all have a good time and get this done.
Yeah.
So it teaches them a good attitude about work. It gives you the opportunity to
Sure.
teach them a good attitude. And then it also teaches them to think through processes.
Exactly.
If you teach them how to do something, and I don't know if we're going to get to that, but you do have to teach them how to do certain jobs.
Sure.
Your preschooler doesn't know how to fold the socks right unless you teach your preschooler how to fold the socks right. But it also just gives them an opportunity to go through that process in their mind. Okay, mom said do this first, do this next. And it just teaches them to think. And then as they get older, they're thinking about bigger and bigger and bigger jobs. And you can say to your teenager, hey, can you go out there and organize the garage for me? And they can go out and organize the garage.
Yeah. And the thinking process is so important because we can say to our children, hey, come back in here and take a look at this.
Right.
Do you
that's
think
true.
this job is done?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're teaching your children to think through what has to be done to accomplish this task.
Right.
And like sometimes our kids will clean up the kitchen and maybe they're just being goofy or having, fun with each other, whatever, but they'll leave without putting everything away, or there'll be one more thing that should have gotten done that didn't get done. So it's a training process. We're training our children to think. And I will tell you, moms and dads, that if you teach your children to work and they learn how to think through processes and they're working, their bosses are going to thank God for you someday.
Oh, yes.
And we've told our kids many times, if you'll learn to work, you'll become a leader and you'll be you just absolutely choose your course because there are so few people in our culture that are really given to work.
Right. And employees or employers will appreciate having an employee that's not high maintenance, that they don't have to hover over and constantly remind to get back to work.
Someone that's innovative. So it teaches them to think.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we just wanted to share this. It teaches our children to value possessions. As our children get older and it's their money.
Yes.
And they're buying a pair of shoes with their money.
Yes.
It is amazing how much more care they give to those shoes.
Yes.
And they are just so careful. That's mine. That's mine. I bought that. That's valuable to me.
Yes.
And you can tell a big difference in a kid who has bought his own car and a kid who's driving one that was given to him.
Yes.
And you'll see it all the time, a young man driving a car that's obviously so expensive that there's no way he bought it. But he's careless with it. He just leaves trash in it, and he's hard on the tires, and he drives it recklessly.
Right.
But I remember as a kid when I bought my car, and it was a cheap old thing, but when I bought my first car, it was mine. And I knew the tires, if they got damaged, that was my job to put tires on it. And I had to pay the insurance.
Right.
And learning to work through those is just simply teaching our children to value their possessions.
Even if it doesn't actually belong to them, if they are still in your house or driving your cars. I know when you've asked the boys to detail the cars before, and they do a wonderful job. They really put their hearts into it, but then they get very possessive of that car. Hey, wipe off your shoes before you pick your trash up. They're very careful about things like that. So it does teach them even to value your possessions if they have worked on it.
And it does, I've already kind of alluded to this, but work does teach us to respect others.
Yes.
We realize that others are working hard. That man that's working hard on the street when he's out in the sunshine, or he's out in the cold working.
Yes.
And it is bitter out there, but he's working. When your children are learning to work themselves, it makes them value.
Yes.
The respect for others is something they will value. It also teaches our children leadership.
Yes.
They learn to lead. And I've noticed that the more we train our children to work, the more that teaching becomes part of their life.
Yes.
And some kids are more apt to teach than others, but each of our children will say to their siblings, hey, wait, you're not doing that right. This is how you do that.
Let me show you how to do it.
Let me show you how to do that. Let me help you with that. You got to redo that. So they're learning leadership. It even teaches them to complete tasks. And we've kind of alluded to that already. But work is essential. If your child never learns to work, they're going to struggle all of their life in finishing the job.
Right.
And even if they go to college, that's a hard thing when you've got a kid who cannot finish projects on time because they've never learned to work.
And that's why it's important then for us as parents to inspect, go back, look at it.
Yes.
And that's hard to do because you're busy about your own tasks. But to stop and go look at it and say, hey, could you come back in here and let's work on this one detail?
Absolutely.
A little bit harder.
Training takes time, and often that's why we fail, because we have to stop what we're doing to teach.
Right.
And how about this one? Work teaches our children responsibility.
Yes.
It says to them, and it's a good thing to give your child a responsibility. You're responsible for the bathroom. You're responsible for the vacuuming.
Right.
You're responsible to get the trash out of the car.
Right. They should know by the time they enter elementary school, these are certain tasks that have to be done every day, and these are the ones I do.
Yeah. And we teach them how to do it and when to do it. And we're helping them. Work even teaches our children how to get along with others because they have to work with others. And it's just so important to get along with each other and to work together as a team.
Yes.
And all of that. And then it makes our children valuable. Work turns our children from a taker to an investor.
Yes.
And having children in college, you can hear stories from the dorm about people in the college dorm who are not workers. They never do a room job.
Right.
They never help clean the bathroom. They never help clean the toilet. They never help take out the trash.
Right.
They're takers.
Yes.
And quite frankly, everything in life, and one of the things I've noticed about people that are takers, everything in life is a bother.
Yes.
And they're always unhappy.
Yes.
And they're frustrated because, nobody did this for me. And what do you mean I got to do this? And
right.
It all goes together. When our children do not learn how to work, moms and dads, if we fail in this area, our kids will be unhappy. They will be whiners. They will always be looking for somebody else to bail them out rather than take responsibility. Work is so young. It turns them, work is so valuable. It turns them from an investor or from a taker to an investor.
Right. And if you raise your child to be a taker, then they are just a frustration and a burden to the investors.
Yeah. And it's even hard on a marriage.
Yes.
Because in a marriage, we even had a counseling situation, and we always said to be careful about these, but a counseling situation where he just won't mow the yard. And he's qualified, he's big enough, but he just, who cares? Let the yard grow up. And it was a real frustration to his wife. And my guess is that somewhere along the way, a dad in his life failed to teach him how to work.
Right.
How to take responsibility and how to take pride in a job well done.
Yes.
And moms and dads, we ought to stop here. We're going to run out of time fairly shortly, but we ought to stop here and evaluate, are your children learning how to work? Do they help with the laundry? Do they help clean the house? Do they help fold laundry? Do they help do the dishes? Are they learning how to cook?
Right.
Do they clean the car? Do they take care of the trash?
Right.
Are you paying people to do things while your children are sitting on video games? And this is a terrible blight on our society.
It is.
But we have got to train our children that work is an essential part of succeeding in life.
Right.
And so when they're young, let's talk about when they're young, because a lot of our listeners have really young children.
Yes.
And talk to us just some of the things we did when our kids were pretty young.
We taught them from the time they could walk by themselves and maybe sort toys or whatever. We taught them how to do certain small jobs.
Sure.
So if they could pick up a toy and walk, then they can put it in the toy basket.
Yes.
If they can pick up a toy and walk, they can probably grab their blanket and smooth it out on their bed. And it won't look like when mom makes the bed, but it's fine. They are learning to make their bed.
Absolutely.
Charity is 12, and she still doesn't make her bed exactly precisely the way her mother makes her bed.
Which is a blessing to her mother.
It's okay. It's okay. I just look in there and I see, oh, well, she made it, and it's good.
Yes, she did.
They can learn to put their dirty laundry in the laundry basket instead of leaving it on the floor. And you can do that even as a mom. When you're giving them their bath, or dad, if you give them their bath in the evening, you take off those little clothes and say, oh, there's the laundry basket. Let's throw it in there.
You're always teaching.
Yes.
Put these in the laundry basket. You're always talking. And one of the things we had to learn to do was you talk while you do.
Yes.
This is where this goes. Let's put the soap back here. Let's let the water out. Let's hang up our towel.
This is what we do. This is where we put our toothbrush when we're done brushing our teeth.
And this is how we wipe off the sink when we are done brushing our teeth.
This is where we put our shoes when we take them off. That is still a struggle in our house.
And you know what happens, though, is if we say it enough, it becomes second nature in our children. They hear our voices.
Yes.
So that when they see the sink and they're done, they know that, oh my goodness, the toothbrush goes there. It's just second nature to them.
Wipe it off. Now
we used to sing. Remember that?
Yes.
When our kids were younger, we did Pat's the Pirate.
Oh, yes.
Did a lot of Pat's the Pirate. And I remember many times he had a song that our children learned somewhere along the way about finish the job.
Finish the job, yes.
And many times we would sing that song with the children. And we're helping them to pick up the toys. We're making singing the song turns work into a pleasure. So we don't feel like you have to beat your kids up. Oh my goodness, you're going to learn how to work and you're going to get up at 4 a.m. and milk 10 cows.
Oh, yeah.
Now, our forefathers did that.
Yes, they did.
And it was a generation that knew how to survive and could grow their own food, make their own clothes.
Right.
It's just phenomenal to think about how they lived and what they accomplished. So we obviously don't live in that culture, but our children can learn to work, and you can start young.
You can start very young.
Any other thought there for our young parents?
I don't think so. I think
what you do is you add more as they're able.
Yes.
There's going to come a point when your child is big enough to push that vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
And they may not do it exactly the way, and you may have to go back and do it again. But letting a child vacuum a room is just, and sometimes moms, you young moms, or even you young dads, when our children are younger, they get in our way because we're trying to get the job done. And here is our son wanting to help us screw in that bolt. And the whole deal is, I get out of the way. I don't have time for this. I got to get the bolt in there so I can get on with my life.
Right.
And we have got to, as parents, it's hard to do. We got to stop.
Yep.
We just got to slow down and say, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you how to do that.
Yes.
Let me let you put your little hand in here and grab my screwdriver and tighten that down. And you just add more. You give them responsibilities. They can vacuum. They can clean bathrooms. Our children clean the bathrooms daily, at least a minimal cleaning.
Right, yes.
And then they do once a week a full cleaning.
Yes.
And they help with the vacuuming. They clean the bathrooms. They house clean.
Dust. They can work
in the yard. They help in the yard. They can take down trees. They can pick up limbs. They can take care of the trash.
And they even go and help neighbors when neighbors need help too.
And I put that down here because I put help them get jobs. And let's close here. How much time do we have there, Love?
Not very much at all.
All right, let's just close up. Help them get jobs. Our son's pressure washed our neighbor's house.
Yes.
And it was funny because our kids would work for him. And this is just a weird story. He's gone now. He's passed away. But our kids would sometimes do the most minimal tasks for him, and he would give them, say, $25 or $30. It was nothing. And we were like, wow, that's too much. And then they went over one day and they pressure washed his house, and it took probably about 2 days worth. It was a mess. It was really messy.
It was a long, hard,
he
hot
gave
job.
them a little less than he paid them for the easy jobs. And the kids were disappointed, but now we laugh about it. Now they're older and they'll laugh. I've heard the boys joke about that.
Right.
Remember we worked 48 hours on that dumb house and he paid us so little. But we're helping them get jobs. They can mow yards for people. Our kids cut trees, clean up debris. Chick-fil-A has been great for our children.
Right.
Because they trained.
Yes.
And there was no work on Sunday, so we could still go to church as a family.
Yes.
Basically, what we're trying to say to you is work is hard, and that's okay.
Yes.
Because life is hard, and work is an essential part of it.
It is.
So we're coming to an end. It's kind of hard to end because we've been in this series for so long.
Yes.
Family success.
It's been a good series.
Moms and dads, if we can serve you, if we can help you, if we can answer your questions, all you got to do is send us a message, an email, or a voice message from our website, the little microphone down in the right-hand corner. Many of you message us that way. If you just have questions, if we can answer them. And we are doing the Valentine's month celebrating love just in honor of Valentine's Day being in February. And we're looking forward already to March and working on things. We've been asked on several topics. And so if there's things you're thinking, wow, I wish you guys would talk about that, then we're working on things even now.
Right.
And I'd love to hear from you. Bethany would love to hear from you. Bethany and I love coming to you every week and sharing our heart about the family.
Yes, it's been lots of fun.
Any further thought, my love?
I think we've about covered it. Now we can all just work on that family success.
And may the Lord bless you as you do it. It's a wonderful thing to accomplish. Thank you so much for joining us today for Keeping It Young podcast. We'll see you next week.
The Keeping It Young podcast is a Bax 5 Media production. All rights reserved.